Okay, so are you ready to jump into this?
I am.
We're talking about language learning.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, how learning English could, like, change your life.
Yeah,
And
big topic.
yeah, it is. I mean,
Right?
we're looking at this podcast boldly titled, This English Podcast Will Change Your Life Forever.
Wow.
Forever's a long time.
It is a long time.
So I'm really curious
Yeah?
to see what they're offering here.
Yeah, and just the way they're presenting it is really interesting.
Really?
Yeah,
How so?
they have this montage of all these people from all over the world and this really uplifting music, almost like they're saying speaking English is your ticket to this incredible global experience.
Right. Travel, education, connection.
Mm-hmm.
It does make you think about all the doors that could open.
Right.
But is language really that powerful?
That's the big question.
Yeah, can it actually, like, change your life?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Language is more than just words. It's a system of understanding the world.
Okay.
It shapes how we think,
Yeah.
how we learn, how we connect with people from different cultures.
I see.
So in that sense, yes,
Okay.
language can be incredibly powerful.
Okay. I'm starting to see what you mean.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, like, being able to order a coffee in another country.
Exactly.
It's about accessing a whole new way of thinking
Yeah.
and experiencing the world.
Exactly.
Oh.
And when we're talking about English specifically,
Yeah.
the sheer number of speakers globally is staggering.
Yeah, they mentioned 1.5 billion,
1.5 billion.
which is almost 20%
Almost 20.
of the world population.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a huge network of people,
Yeah.
ideas, and resources.
It's mind-blowing
It is mind-blowing.
when you put it that way.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean
Right.
for someone learning English?
Right.
What specific advantages does it offer?
Well, think about scientific research. A vast majority of published studies are in English.
Uh-huh.
So if you're in a field like medicine or engineering,
Yeah.
knowing English gives you access to cutting-edge research,
Yeah.
allows you to collaborate with experts from all over the world.
Okay, so there's the academic side of things.
Right.
But what about practical everyday benefits?
Right.
They mentioned career opportunities in the source material.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this more and more with the rise of remote work.
Uh-huh.
Many global companies now require English proficiency,
Yep.
which means you can apply for jobs and work with teams based anywhere in the world,
Wow.
all from the comfort of your own home.
That's a game changer.
It is a game changer.
For people who want to travel
Yeah.
or experience different cultures while working.
Exactly.
But isn't the dominance of English also creating barriers for people who don't speak it?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it a bit unfair
Right.
that so much knowledge and opportunity is locked behind a single language?
That's a valid point
Yeah.
and a very complex issue.
Yeah.
While knowing English does offer numerous advantages in today's world,
Ah,
it's also important to acknowledge the potential drawbacks.
okay.
Some argue that it can lead to cultural homogenization,
Uh-huh.
where the voices and perspectives of non-English speakers are marginalized.
Right.
It's a balancing act,
Yeah.
recognizing the power of English as a global language,
Right.
while also advocating for linguistic diversity and inclusivity.
So it's not as simple as, like,
Right.
English is good, everyone should learn it.
Exactly.
There are nuances and different perspectives to consider.
Yeah,
I appreciate you bringing that up.
of course.
Okay, so we've established that knowing English opens doors,
Yes.
but there's also this big elephant in the room,
Uh-oh. What's that?
the fear
The
factor.
fear factor.
I think a lot of people are intimidated
Yeah.
by the prospect of learning a new language,
Oh, absolutely.
myself included.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's understandable.
Yeah.
Putting yourself out there speaking in a language you're not fluent in,
right.
it can be nerve-wracking.
It can be really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The podcast actually addresses this fear directly
Okay.
and suggests a few strategies to overcome it.
They mentioned embracing mistakes
Yes.
and practicing regularly, right?
You're right. Those are the big ones.
I feel like I hear that advice all the time.
Sure.
But honestly,
Yeah.
it can be so demoralizing to keep messing up.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. How do you push past that feeling of, like, I'll never get this?
Well, this is where the idea of a growth mindset comes in.
Growth mindset. Okay.
Yeah, it's about understanding that making mistakes is an essential part of the learning process.
Okay.
So instead of seeing them as failures, view them as opportunities to learn and improve.
Easier said than done, I know.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. But what about practical tools
Right.
for practicing?
Yeah.
They mentioned language learning apps.
Yeah, those are very popular right now.
Yeah. Are those actually helpful
Good question.
or just a gimmick?
There's actually a lot of research on the effectiveness of language learning apps,
Oh, wow.
and they can be a fantastic tool, especially for beginners.
Okay.
What's interesting is how they leverage technology to keep you motivated.
Uh-huh.
Many of them use gamification,
Okay.
points rewards levels,
Ah,
to make learning feel more like a game than a chore.
okay.
It's a smart way to tap into our natural desire
Yeah.
for progress and achievement.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I've definitely noticed that about those apps.
right,
They make it feel less like studying and more like,
right.
well, playing a game on your phone.
Exactly.
So it's not just about rote memorization.
Right.
It's about finding ways to make learning engaging and fun.
Exactly. And this podcast seems to be taking a similar approach.
Really?
Yeah, they talk about going beyond grammar drills and vocabulary lists,
Uh-huh.
focusing instead on storytelling and inspiring guest speakers.
Yeah, I noticed that they seem to be really big on using stories as a way to teach English.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
But is that really effective?
That's a good question.
I mean, isn't it a bit too fluffy?
Well, actually, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that narrative is an incredibly powerful tool for learning. We tend to remember stories much better than isolated facts or rules.
That's true.
Our brains are wired to connect with narratives,
Okay.
to empathize with characters, and to remember the emotional impact of a story. So using stories to teach English isn't just about entertainment.
Right.
It's about tapping into our cognitive strengths.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach.
So it's not just about learning the language.
Right,
It's about connecting with it on a deeper level
right.
through stories
Yeah,
and shared experiences.
exactly.
Right.
And this podcast seems to be taking it a step further
Okay, how so?
by creating a whole community around the learning experience.
Interesting.
They mentioned a Discord channel and weekly challenges, which is really interesting.
Yeah, they're really emphasizing the community aspect.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
But honestly, does that stuff really make a difference?
Wow.
I mean, can't you just learn a language on your own
sure,
with a good textbook and some dedication?
you can.
Yeah.
But there's growing research
Okay.
on the power of social learning.
Okay.
Having a community of fellow learners can provide support,
Right.
accountability, and even a bit of friendly competition.
Okay. I can see how that could be motivating.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
like having a study buddy,
Right.
but on a much larger scale.
Exactly.
But isn't there a risk of getting distracted?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, online communities can be a bit of a time suck, right?
Definitely a potential pitfall there.
Yeah.
But it's all about finding a balance.
Okay.
The key is to use the community as a resource for learning and support,
Yeah.
while also staying focused on your individual goals.
That makes sense. It's about finding the right community
Right.
and using it in a way
Yeah,
that enhances your learning, not distracts from it.
exactly.
Okay.
And this podcast seems to be trying to create that kind of supportive, learning-focused community.
Yeah.
They talk about sharing resources, offering encouragement, and even hosting live events
Wow.
where learners can interact with each other and with the podcast hosts.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're really going all in on this idea of community-based language learning.
It really speaks to the fact that learning a language is not just an individual pursuit.
Right.
It's a social one.
It is a social one.
We learn best when we connect with others, share our experiences, and support each other along the way.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to realize that there's so much more to language learning than I initially thought.
Yeah.
It's not just about memorizing grammar rules.
Right.
It's about connecting with people,
Yeah.
exploring new cultures, and expanding your horizons.
And that's what makes this podcast so interesting. They're not just teaching English,
I-
they're creating a whole experience around it.
Right.
An experience that taps into the power of community storytelling and personal growth.
It's almost like they're saying English is not just a language,
Right.
but a passport to a whole new world of experiences.
Precisely.
Wow.
And that's a powerful message,
Yeah.
especially in today's increasingly interconnected world.
It makes you wonder if one language can have such a profound impact.
Right.
What possibilities might open up
Right.
with even more languages under your belt?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
If language is a key, imagine how many doors you could unlock with a whole set of keys.
I love that analogy.
I know, right?
It's like having access to different rooms
Oh, yeah.
in a giant mansion of knowledge and experience.
Right.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
Most of us don't have the time or resources
Right.
to become fluent in multiple languages.
Sure.
So how do we choose which language to focus on?
That's a great question. and one that depends on your individual goals and interests.
Okay.
Are you learning a language for professional reasons, for travel,
Yeah.
or simply for personal enrichment?
Right.
Once you have a clear sense of your motivation,
Okay.
you can start to research which languages align with your aspirations.
Right. So it's not just about picking the easiest language
Right.
or the one that's most popular.
Right.
It's about finding the language that speaks to you personally,
Yes,
the one that opens up the doors you want to walk through.
exactly.
Okay.
And that's where the real journey of language learning begins, with that spark of curiosity, that desire to connect with something beyond your current world.
It's not just about what you say,
Right.
but about how you see the world.
And how the world sees you.
This is getting pretty deep.
It is deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good reminder
Mm-hmm.
that language learning is about so much more than just words on a page.
Yeah.
It's about expanding your horizons,
Absolutely.
both personally
Mm-hmm.
and professionally.
And that's something worth investing in, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to anyone out there feeling hesitant about taking the plunge into a new language,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this deep dive has sparked a little curiosity,
Yeah.
a little sense of adventure.
Perhaps it's time to embrace the challenge.
Yeah,
To see where that language journey might lead you.
Yeah.
You never know what doors might open.
that's very true.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how this podcast is framing English as more than just a language, but as a tool for personal growth.
Yeah, it's a fascinating perspective, isn't it?
It is, but how does that actually work?
Well, think about the process of learning a new language.
Okay.
You're constantly encountering new words,
Mhm.
new concepts, new ways of expressing yourself.
Right.
And this forces you to step outside your comfort zone
Okay.
and to think differently.
Yeah.
It can be challenging,
Uh-huh.
but it's also incredibly stimulating for your brain.
So it's like a mental workout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that learning a new language can improve cognitive function, memory,
Wow.
and even problem-solving skills.
Really?
It's like cross-training for your brain.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
starting to see how this goes beyond just being able to communicate.
Right.
But let's go back to this idea of personal growth.
Sure.
How does learning a language change who you are as a person?
Well, language is intricately tied to culture.
Okay.
When you learn a new language, you're not just learning words and grammar, you're also learning about the values, beliefs, and customs
Right.
of the people who speak that language.
Okay.
And this can challenge your own perspectives
I see.
and broaden your understanding of the world.
Can you give me an example?
Sure.
I'm having trouble picturing how this actually plays out in real life.
Let's say you're learning Japanese.
Okay.
As you delve deeper into the language, you might encounter concepts like hane and tatme,
Okay.
which relate to the distinction between one's true feelings and the socially appropriate way to express them.
Interesting.
This can lead you to reflect on your own communication style
Okay.
and how cultural norms influence the way we interact with others.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I never thought about how learning a language could lead you to question your own cultural assumptions.
It's a subtle but powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And it can lead to greater empathy and understanding
Okay.
of people from different backgrounds.
So it's not just about becoming bilingual.
Right.
It's about becoming bicultural in a sense.
Exactly.
Okay.
You start to see the world through multiple lenses,
Yeah.
which can enrich your life in countless ways.
They mentioned in the source material that this podcast emphasizes storytelling as a way to teach English.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Sure.
Is that an effective approach?
Absolutely.
Really?
Stories are powerful tools for learning because they engage our emotions
Okay.
and make information more memorable.
That's true.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You're more likely to remember a story about a character who overcame a challenge
Right.
than a list of grammar rules.
I see your point.
Right.
We've all experienced that moment where a book or a movie stays with us long after we've finished it.
Exactly.
And often it's the stories that teach us the most profound lessons.
I agree.
Yeah.
And when it comes to language learning, stories can help you connect with the culture on a deeper level.
Uh-huh.
You start to understand the humor, the values,
Right.
the way people think and feel.
So it's about immersing yourself in the culture through storytelling,
Yes.
not just memorizing vocabulary lists.
Precisely.
Right.
And this podcast seems to understand that they're bringing in inspiring guest speakers who share their personal stories,
Right.
which adds a whole other dimension to the learning experience.
I'm really intrigued by this approach.
Yeah.
It sounds like a much more engaging and enriching way to learn the language
It is.
than the traditional methods I'm used to.
I think so too. It's definitely a more holistic approach.
Okay.
One that recognizes the interconnectedness of language, culture, and personal growth.
And speaking of connection,
Yes.
they also mentioned building a community around the podcast.
Right. They're really emphasizing that social aspect.
Yeah, they have a Discord channel, weekly challenges, live events.
Uh-huh.
It seems like they're really emphasizing that social aspect of learning.
And that's smart.
Yeah,
Learning a language can be a challenging journey,
it can be.
and having a community of fellow learners can make a huge difference.
I can see how that can be helpful,
Yeah,
especially when you're feeling discouraged or stuck.
absolutely.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders in your corner,
Right.
rooting for you every step of the
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
And they can also offer practical advice,
Mm-hmm.
share resources,
Right?
and even practice with you.
Yeah, it's a win-win situation.
I'm starting to see how all these elements,
Yeah.
the focus on personal growth,
Hmm.
the use of storytelling, the emphasis on community,
Yeah.
come together to create a really unique and powerful learning experience.
It's about creating an environment where language learning is not just about acquiring a skill, but about expanding your horizons and becoming a more well-rounded individual.
And that's a pretty amazing thing, wouldn't you
It's
say?
pretty amazing.
To think that learning a language could have that kind of ripple effect on your life.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's a testament to the power of language to shape our thoughts, our experiences, and our understanding of the world.
And maybe, just maybe, it could change our lives forever.
Perhaps that's not such a bold claim after all.
It's really inspiring to think about how learning English,
Yeah.
or any language for that matter, can be so much more
Mm.
than just a practical skill.
Right.
It can be a journey of self-discovery,
Yeah.
cultural exploration, personal transformation.
It's like opening a window to a whole new world.
Yeah.
With all its complexities and beauty.
And I think that's what makes this podcast, this English podcast, will change your life forever. So intriguing.
Mm.
It's not just about teaching grammar and vocabulary.
Right.
It's about tapping into that deeper potential
Yeah.
of language learning.
It's about recognizing that language is not just a tool for communication, but a key to unlocking a richer, more meaningful life experience.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd love to hear
Yeah.
what's resonating with you the most about this whole English changing your life idea.
Yeah, what's got you thinking?
Yeah.
Maybe I should give this a shot.
And building on that,
Yeah.
if language can unlock possibilities, what doors might another language open for you?
Oh, that's a good one.
What world would you want to step into?
Right. So many possibilities.
What new perspectives and experiences are you curious to explore?
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, thanks for joining me on this deep dive
It's been a pleasure.
into the world of language learning.
Yeah, this was a really fun one.
Until next time, keep those ears open and those minds curious.
I love it.